Hi, class.
Hi.
This took forever to figure out, but we did it. Anyway, so we did English-only politics and arguments for bilingual education. I'm Sarah.
I'm Tessa.
So starting off, we wanted to look at the demographics of language in the United States. So we actually went to the 2011 U.S. Census, and this is only over here, and I'll post this so you can see it better. But over here, this is only Spanish speakers. There's a lot of other speakers there were, but this was the widest speaking of language, aside from English, in the United States. And one purple dot on here is equal to 100 people, and there are a whole lot of purple dots on there. And then this one over here is from migrationpolicy.org, and this shows by state how many ELL students there are in the country. And so we thought that demographics would be really important to start looking at why English-only politics don't work and why bilingualism is the way to go.
Why they're important.
Let's cut off a little bit. We'll post it so you can see what that is. Okay, so starting with arguments for English only and what people argue to make English the official language of the United States. The first one is to avoid segregation and isolation, and we saw this a lot in the Curtis Acosta film that we watched, Precious Knowledge, where the politician was arguing that the reason not to have these diverse classes or any sort of bilingualism is it segregates the groups and isolates them and makes people not want to come together. They also claim that it assists in student achievement, though they give no statistics on any form of student achievement that it helps. Same with raises student self-esteem. There's no backing knowledge to it, but this is just what they say. Another reason they give for arguments for English only is that lots of people speak English, as well as many people just like the idea. And most of this came from proenglish.org, which is a very interesting website that should be viewed. And then there's a quote from it said, "Segregation by language and ethnicity does not lead to higher academic performance, does not raise student self-esteem, results in social isolation, and may contribute to high dropout rates, delaying the learning of English. The language of school community life holds back student achievement." And these are just all claims. They backed it with no actual statistics.
So then some arguments for bilingual education. I'm going to start off by just saying that bilingual education has been proven as a viable option for ELLs to be acquiring a second language, and then also for other students who are in the classroom as well who aren't ELLs to be acquiring a second language. And so through this, in a bilingual setting, because there are students who are ELLs and students who speak English, but they're coming together to learn another language, this puts students all at a level playing field, and so there's possibility for cultural inclusion. Students are maybe learning about different cultures, so let's say it's a Spanish bilingual program. Students who have Spanish heritage might be teaching other kids about their Spanish heritage, and there would be collaboration as far as what types of cultural heritage they have and learning about each other, and so there's a lot of cultural inclusion and even playing field where English and Spanish would both be put on the same pedestal. There wouldn't be more power for having one language or having the other, and so then these students can feel respected in their language, and they can relate to one another as peers rather than having a sort of hierarchy in the classroom. And so then this in turn follows through with higher success rate and lower dropout rates in the classroom, and that goes not only for ELL students but for the other students that are in the bilingual classrooms as well, because they're being pushed to learn in a more difficult and challenging way, learning through a new language. And so then this is intrinsically motivating, and they are more engaged in the classroom, And it just keeps them really engaged and working hard. And then it improves socialization, like I said. Students then have an even playing field, and so they can relate to one another as peers. If a student doesn't feel isolated by an inability to communicate with other students in the classroom or the teacher, then it's a lot easier for them to flourish socially, and just gain social capital through the knowledge that they have, and being able to show like that they have cultural knowledge, maybe in a Spanish culture or different things like that, and getting to have equal power in that way. Another really important thing about bilingual education is that it eliminates language extinction, not only for the student. So a student who is in an English-only classroom might have to give up speaking their own language or put their own language on the back burner to really focus and put a lot of effort into learning English, whereas in bilingual education, they're both given equal time and effort, and so they're actually able to become have an academic ability in both English and their home language, which is a huge asset not only for the student but for the community at large, because then they can take those skills and use them in the community. They could take them to the job force, all kinds of things like this. Bilingual education leads to better teachers because in Arizona, when English-only laws passed, there was over 50% of the highly qualified bilingual population of teachers who left the area because they wanted to be in a more hospitable learning environment and teaching environment, where they could actually use the skills that they had studied for, like being able to be a bilingual teacher. And so if you have an English-only policy, you're going to have less qualified teachers coming into the area because it's not like they wouldn't be able to use the skills that they learned in school. It's not a good place for them to be teaching. And then lastly, which I think is really important, by being able to learn at an academic level in both languages, students will be able to have a lot of respect in themselves and pride in their home language because they can use it fluently and they can use it at an academic level. And then that in turn really plays into their belief in themselves and their own abilities, and also how they identify with their own culture, rather than thinking like that my culture is less than or not as important as American culture. They can think, no, like I learned all these things through my own language, and I got to share my own cultural identity, and that really helps bolster their self-esteem, and it just kind of feeds in a positive circle. Next, we wanted to look at some of the English-only policies that are in place. So I'll go ahead and read our little quote that we have here. So, the achievement gaps were not closing in any of the states, California, Arizona, or Massachusetts, that had passed the English-only legislation. There was, however, evident in Massachusetts that dropout rates of English learners had risen, and in Arizona that more EL students were being placed in special education classes. And so basically what this is talking about is that when English only, so no bilingual, no taking kids out and helping them in another language, just full immersion, English, no subsidizing anything in any way. What was happening was that they, even though they thought that this would promote better testing scores, better success rates, better self-esteem, the opposite was happening. Like, even if they were saying that this is what they thought was going to happen, the opposite was happening. And students weren't doing well, and it just wasn't a good way for them to be learning English because it was just a complete sink or swim situation and they had no support whatsoever. And then just to pull your attention to our graphic, here are the states that have English official movements and passing laws of English official as an official language. So basically what these places are trying to pass is that you'll only be able to use English in any government place, like asking for help in government places or communicating with government officials or anything like that. And as we know, public school is a place of government, and so that would include education in this part of their movement, which is really scary. And then lastly, bilingualism policies in place. So specifically looking at Washington, one of the programs that's in place is the Transitional Bilingual Instructional Program. And this program is for students who are coming in with very low levels of English and need help transitioning their abilities in their home language to English. And so what has to happen first before they can even receive any of the services, which I will talk about, is they have to be tested for English proficiency, and they have to be below a transitional phase. So they have to be somewhere between beginning to advanced below the transitional phase. And at this point, about 8% of Washington students are using this program, so that means that they have qualified for it, clearly. And this program uses 2 languages as a means of instruction, one of which is English, so the other would be their home language. It also teaches concepts and knowledge in the primary language rather than teaching the most important things in English, so things that we don't want our kids to miss out on. And the reason why we have this graphic here, which is a
you can see
satire, I'll read it just in case you can't. So the man on
smiling cowboy.
Yeah, on the left is saying, "I'm not racist. I just want what's best for them. And the best way for them to learn is through immersion. And I say, let them sink or swim." And then what we really hear when he says this, over in his head, he's thinking back across the river. So basically, the idea behind Transitional Bilingual Instructional Program is just giving the services and really thinking about how do these kids learn and what's going to be the best way for them to actually be learning English. And so it's kind of, these are polar opposites. Yeah. So here, like, nobody's actually thinking about the kids, but they can just say, like, we're thinking about the kids, and if they don't ever say, like, I'm not thinking about the kids, then you can't really point that at them. But really, policies that are for bilingualism state out specific goal-oriented ways that they are targeting the students, not only to help them learn English, but to include them, like, culturally and promote their different diversities. And it's really about working with the school and the students and the communities all together. It's not just on the student to be learning English, it's a collaborative effort. So, yeah.
Perfect. So the last thing we wanted to talk about was kind of a side and part of what comes with bilingual education is diversity education. And we were specifically brought to the attention of this when we were watching Precious Knowledge, and Curtis Acosta, who we have on our slide, who is pretty much the main promoter in our eyes for diversity education with his Mexican American Studies courses that he has in Tucson. And the reason we wanted to bring the attention of this is because it's not just about bilingualism, it's also about celebrating the melting pot that is America and the diversity that we have. And being able to have courses like this might give a better understanding of why it's so important to build up our diverse students as well as our bilingual students, and why English only doesn't work. So that's why we wanted to bring the attention at the very end to Curtis Acosta and diversity education and what it was doing. And there's also some statistics in here talking about how the dropout rates were way down from previous years for the Latino students because they felt such a buildup of their culture and who they were, and they felt important. And that is really important when it comes to bilingual education, is that these students feel that they are important and they're needed. So, and then this is our Works Cited page.
Thank you.
Thank you.